Good afternoon. I'll make it short and sweet. Mine might sound a little bit negative because I'm going to discuss the issues we have between operations and projects. It's nothing new. It's 10, 12 years old. We've been saying the same thing over and over again. In these, especially in current conditions, the companies are going in, bidding these projects at rock bottom prices. They actually go in sometimes. It looks like we're going to end up making a loss instead of a profit. Now we come to the CAPEX and the OPEX. So project managers are protecting the CAPEX. Now, we need to get to understand as well the profit margins. We've got an OPEX, which is a very, very small profit margin. So if we have one big issue or incident during the operations or a big equipment failure, that's it. The profit is gone for the next 2-3 years. And I don't think a lot of project people or management project groups doesn't understand the OPEX side of it. They are protecting their CAPEX. If we don't spend $1,000 in the CAPEX, it's going to cost us $3,000 to $4,000 in the OPEX. So sometimes it makes sense to spend a little bit more money in the CAPEX to protect the OPEX. Operations personnel, we need to get them involved very early in the project. We've been saying that, we've been hearing that the whole time during the conference. It's a lot of talk. Some companies do, most companies don't. And there's a good reason for it. The project managers, they don't want operations involved. Operations comes with all these nice, we want this, we want all the bells and whistles. The project managers protect the CAPEX, they protect the schedule. Operations, once you get a lot of opinion engineering from operations group. So from a project's point and from a senior management level, we have to be very selective who we select from the operations group to represent operations in the project phase. There needs to be a filter. So you have a focal point carefully selected by senior management from your operations group representing operations during your project phase. That helps a lot. So all this noise from operations coming through to projects won't get to the projects group. So your schedule shouldn't be impacted, but the operations input is seriously required during the early phases of the project, from feed, pre-feed and feed. Because that's where a lot of these things, if you don't involve operations, things go wrong right from the beginning. By the time operations gets involved to the end, that's when the schedule gets impacted, the CAPEX gets blown out of the water. That's basically already what I've said. Operations as well. All projects do have a PDMS model. It's part of the piping. I mean, we do create this model. Use that model. Get operations involved. Go and do reviews on the model reviews. At the same time, we look at mechanical handling. Can we get to equipment? Are valves accessible? It's easy to change in the model than to wait in the yard. We have to cut pipes, reroute piping, etc. I mean, the model is there. It doesn't cost anything. The operations groups are there. Use them. Go and have a look at the model. Vessel closures, vessel inspections. Make sure we have operations or some of the project group sign off on the vessel closure certificates. Make sure those vessels are clean. The nozzles, we've seen sponges left in nozzles from argon welding with helmets, gloves, and it's just a huge hassle when we start up, valves block, pipes block. Demister pads, this is a classical one. On glycol contactor outlets is a good example. These comes in sections. We don't check. They must be sewed up with stainless steel wire. These, you get a gas rush through the contactor. One gas rush and that pads are gapped, you get liquid carryover. That goes for separators. Some dehydrators has got it in the dome. It's a small thing to look at, but it's a huge help during operations. Shell spent millions of dollars doing radioactive checks in vessels for foaming. When we investigated, there was actually pads that were gapped. Liquid carryover, they thought it was foaming. Bolting up of pressure vessel nozzles. You come to operations, you unbolt these nozzles, they spring by some cases up to 60 millimeters. I mean, it's not good practice. Those nozzles are not designed to take any stress. Compressors is the same. compressor inlet outlet nozzles. It's somewhere in, later on. But we've witnessed a centrifugal compressor in Brazil. It was bolted up. We got the site to do cold alignment, disconnected the in and outlet. The pipe jumped by 90 millimeters. We had to cut the pipe in situ. They wouldn't accept golden welds, so we had to do a hydro test. A special team had to come. Then we found out that the RTJ groove was cut incorrectly. This was the wrong spec. We had to fly the person from Italy to Brazil, remachine in situ. It's a huge cost. Another one, gas compressor, specifically recirc compressors with floats in the suction scrubber. For some reason, the suppliers supply them all with 0.98 to 1 SG floats. It's not water in there, it's got condensate. The SG is 0.64 to 0.68. I don't know why. We just ordered a new compressor now. We're actually installing it in the yard. Wrong floats. All of them. I spoke yesterday, Monday we had a workshop. Vietnam projects, same thing. I don't know why. I mean, I just don't understand it. Equipment arrives in the shipyards. Project assumes the vendor will take care. The vendor assumes the project group or the operations group in the shipyard will take care of the equipment. Nobody looks at it. There's no QC. We had a compressor. It arrived. It was put in storage outside. Barrels were not covered. There were just plates in. We assumed there were plugs in there. Water ingress. Nobody picked it up. It was installed. Got to Brazil. Opened up for a cold alignment. The whole barrel was rusted. Dry gas seals rusted. Had to be removed. Refurbished. Luckily, there was a supplier rep in Brazil who could refurbish it. 3 weeks delay. That's just the cost. Then you talk about penalties, delay in startup. As Don mentioned earlier on, penalties from Petrobras. Another favorite, cargo tank heating coils. They do the air test and they do a hydro test. It's not good enough. It has to be tested with steam in the shipyard, because that's when you get the hammering effect, and that's where the leaks start springing up and you can pick it up in the shipyard. Once you get to site, it's a huge job. It's almost impossible. Failure of installing insulation kits between stainless steel, mild steel flanges. For some reason, I don't know, it's not an expensive item. According to projects, it's nice to have. Nobody checks on it. Get to site, it's like cancer. Cladding, lagging cladding. Ensure we cut drain holes in the bottom of the vessel's insulation. Because those things are sealed, but none of them, I haven't seen one that's sealed. They all leak. So water ingress, you get under insulation corrosion, very difficult to pick it up. If you cut the holes in the bottom, any water ingress, it actually drains out. It's much less chance of under insulation corrosion. Glycol reboilers. During design, make sure we leave enough excess capacity in these reboilers. They do coke up during operations. Not enough spare capacity. Big problem, we have to pull the bundles much earlier. Logic configuration for standby equipment. The normal configuration is standby equipment. You have to put the override on the pressure transmitter, because otherwise the standby pump will not kick in. If you design the logic, it only kicks in when there's a run demand for the pump. Freshwater flushing facilities for dry deluge lines. After a deluge initiation, those lines are filled with seawater. If you don't flush it, all the deluge nozzles tend to calcify. Later you have to drill them open. Also the dead legs. Good practice during the yard, install small drain holes with even lines with a small orifice. Make sure there's no dead legs with the trapped water in the lines. Skid drains. Again, for some reason, these vendors, they install them forward or in the middle. The vessel is always trimmed aft, so the drain, all the water comes to the aft of the drain panel. IG vents, this is a favorite. Most companies, apart from SBM, I think SBM has changed up in the early 2000s. They install high velocity vents. The other companies, I know Modec, I work for Modec, we still install them in the flare tower. We've had an incident, the model showed it wasn't possible to have ignition. We had ignition. So It's not good practice. High velocity vents away from the flare tower, because you don't know when you're going to end up with a few days of zero or low wind conditions. If the operator opens that valve too far, there's a good chance of ignition. Because again, during design phase, it's IG, it's not IG. As soon as you start producing that cargo tank, it's live hydrocarbon gas. So you're not venting IG, you're venting hydrocarbon gas. These are just some highlights that I've experienced over the past years. It sounds a bit negative, but it's things that can be avoided. It's not big things. If we involve the operations team, Don said, work as an integrated team with projects. We talk a lot about it, but it's very few companies who actually implement it. It doesn't cost anything.